Hi chess fans, welcome to this video on middle game ideas. We will look at the idea of local superiority today, and we will look at the game between Veselin Topalov and Fabiano Caruana, played in St. Louis in the US. It was a 60-minute rapid game, and we will see some interesting ideas in this game. Veselin Topalov started off with c4, knight f6, knight c3, e6, knight f3, d5, d4, and the first training question of this video, quick opening theory question. Black has a lot of options in this position. Can you name the 6 most commonly played moves that give a decent position to black? Quick opening theory quiz here. Pause your video and try to find the 6 most commonly played moves for black. Okay, the answers are c6, the Slav, c5, the Tarsh, or bishop to e7, different bishop moves, or bishop to b4. There's also the flexible move knight b to d7. And the move number 6 is what has been played in the game by Fabiano Caruana, d takes c. And Veselin continued with e4, bishop to b4, and now bishop takes c4. The more common move instead of bishop takes c4 is to play bishop g5, pinning the knight. And training question number 2, why does white sacrifice a pawn here? How come white is sacrificing a pawn? And what is his compensation for sacrificing the pawn? Okay, white is sacrificing a pawn here because black can now take the pawn on e4 with the knight, because the knight on c3 is pinned. But white does get compensation for this pawn. White develops with castling, and now black takes on c3, b takes c, and bishop to d6. So where is white's compensation? White's compensation for the pawn is that black had to spend 3 tempi to get the pawn. The first tempo, knight takes e4. The second tempo, knight takes c3. And after b takes, the third tempo, bishop to d6. So generally this exchange is good for white, and if one could venture a very careful rule from this, but careful it doesn't apply in all positions, maybe you could say each tempo is worth half a pawn, and because white got 3 tempi here for the pawn, it might be a favorable exchange for him in that particular position here. But careful with this rule. But in general, you can say a tempo is a good thing, and if you want to get compensation for a pawn, it's good to get a tempo. Okay, white continued developing, rook to e1, castle, queen to d3, active move, activating the queen on a lot of possible plans, knight to d7, and now Veselin Topalov played an interesting move, knight to e5. And training question number 3, black is a pawn down here in this position, and white is a pawn down in this position here and should be attacking. So that's what you would expect in a position like this to be white's plan. And a typical defensive strategy for the defending player is to exchange pieces. So why does Topalov play knight to e5 here, offering an exchange of pieces by either the bishop or the knight, which seems counterintuitive? Why does the knight not go to g5, for example, somehow participating here in the attack? Training question number 3, pause your video and try to find the reasoning behind this move. Okay, let's have a look what happened in the game. Caruana took the bait and exchanged the piece. Bishop takes e5 and d takes e5. And now you can see something very interesting here. White has exchanged a piece, but now all of black's pieces are boxed in. Have a look here. The knight cannot go to f6. It cannot take this pawn here. It has to move to the other side of the board. This rook is totally boxed in. This bishop here is boxed in. First the knight has to move away so that it can move anywhere, and then there's this pawn here now blocked by white's pawn on e5, so this bishop is really one of the worst pieces now on the entire board. And this rook is not much better because it can really only get out of there once the bishop gets out, so arguably it's even worse positioned. Well, and the queen does have the diagonal here, so the queen has the square h4, but all the other squares are also taken away from the queen at the moment. So very interesting. White is setting the stage here to prepare an attack on the king and to achieve what Kasparov used to call a local superiority. Even though white is down in material a pawn, actually, if you would look at only the half of the board where the black king is positioned, white has much more pieces attacking this king, so white actually has a superiority here on the king side, and all these pieces here are not participating in the action. So white is actually arguably stronger in this position. And this continuation of knight e5 and the exchange of the pieces, boxing in black's pieces, is very topical, following up on sacrificing the pawn. Let's have a quick look. If black had exchanged with the knight here, the situation would be very similar. And arguably, well, better or worse, hard to say, but maybe the knight had some better squares to go to. After the bishop takes, the knight has at least some squares to go to. And maybe that was the reasoning. But I think in essence, the motive stays the same, that white is exchanging a piece, and in return, black's pieces are boxed in. Okay, black did play knight to b6 here, which is attacking the bishop, okay, but is also moving the knight to the wrong side of the board. Now, training question number 4. Following up on the principle of the previous move, and also in the spirit of the topic of this video, local superiority, what would be a crazy but principled move here for white? Pause your video and find the crazy but principled move. Okay, Topalov played queen to g3, giving up this bishop on c4, which is now unprotected, and black took this bishop. And you can see here again, all of black's pieces are boxed in. The queen does not have any square here. All of the squares of this diagonal are now controlled. This rook does not participate. This bishop is caged in by the pawn on e6 and the rook as well. And the knight is not more active and participating in defensive action on this side of the board. In fact, all of these 3 squares here, 4 squares that would help him get on the other side of the board are taken. So Topalov sacrificed a piece here for an even stronger local superiority on the king side. And now really white has to launch an attack before black activates his pieces. And black really will need a long time to activate the pieces, and white's pieces can get into the attack really quickly. So it's a very double-edged position. The engine says that white is a bit worse off here, but I think practically this is very difficult to play for black. White plays bishop to h6, and black does not have much choice than playing g7, weakening the dark squares around the king. White plays rook a to d1, attacking the queen, and luring the queen maybe on the white squares, where it will be very passive. But Fabiano Caruana played bishop to d7 instead. And now in this position here, black's pieces need some time still to be activated. What resources does white have to launch an attack and to continue its attack? What are the, not necessarily the moves, but what are the resources white has to launch an attack in this position? Okay, white's resources are in this position to move the pawn forward, and the other resource is to bring these rooks in here like this to swing to the other side of the board. And in fact, white played pawn to h4 in this position. Okay, same position, different question. Why is it a bad idea though to take the rook here with the bishop? Or also in the position before? Why is it a bad idea here already to take the rook with the bishop? Training question number 6. Why is it a bad idea? Well, it's a bad idea because, of course, building up on the principle of local superiority in attack, giving up an attacking piece, even though you win a little bit of material, is a bad idea because now black is still material up, but white has an attacking piece less, and black now has brought in the queen as a defensive resource to defend the weak squares, the weak dark squares around the king. So in this position here, and also after the rook move, two principles of attack: don't give up an attacking piece even if you win a little bit of material, if you end up in a position that's worse, and identify all the resources in your position to strengthen your attack, which is bringing in your rooks, bringing in all your pieces to the attack, and opening files on the king. Okay, after h4, knight to b6, and this is an interesting move, knight to b6. This is really the best that black can come up with. Notice that black does not move the rook away, so because it's always bad to take, because this will help black actually to defend. But of all the moves that you could think of, knight to b6 is the best move Fabiano Caruana came up with the idea of bringing the knight in to defend some of the squares here. But it really shows that it's so hard to activate those pieces. Look at the queen. All of those squares here are denied to the queen. This bishop is boxed in, and yeah, the rook are just miserable. So this principle of local superiority really becomes so clear here, because white actually has two rooks, a queen and a bishop. Attacking the king and the pawn on h4 is also a resource, while black really doesn't have any pieces available to the defense. So you could argue in this particular attack here, white is up two rooks and a bishop and a queen maybe. Okay. Knight b6, h5, white just continues the attack. Queen to e7, again you can see here marked in red how badly positioned the pieces are. The best black can come up with is knight b6 and queen e7. Rook to d4, white is using all the resources available in the position to attack. Bishop to e8. Black is now having some ideas of pushing this pawn and somehow bringing the bishop, somehow attempting to close the position and also bringing the bishop in. Maybe the best defensive plan in here. And white plays bishop to g5, looking maybe at bringing the bishop over here. So now, black is arguably in a very bad position here, but Fabiano Caruana is a top player. So question number 7, in a position like this, what is often a good defensive strategy for black or for any color? What's a good defensive strategy in a position like this? Okay, a good defensive strategy in a position like this. So what is the features of this position? The features of this position is white has a strong attack, much more active pieces, a local superiority, but black is material up. So good defensive strategy that black can think about is to give back material in exchange for activating pieces. So black should not hold on to his material in a position like this. Black should also not like sacrifice everything like crazy, but black should look for smart ways to give up a little bit of material here and there to activate his pieces and bring the pieces into the defense. And this is what Fabiano Caruana tried here. Played f6, and now it becomes clear what was the purpose of the bishop move before. Black was planning pushing this pawn, maybe exchanging some material, and now the bishop is available to protect along this diagonal. But obviously this pawn on f6 is now hanging, so white actually takes out this pawn, and black is swinging the queen over. The queen is much more active here, so arguably the queen is activated here. But white has the possibility to gobble up a second pawn, and black plays queen to f5, trying to hold everything together a little bit here. So have a look. Black gave up 2 pawns to activate his pieces a little bit, and black is still material up. Black is a piece up and a pawn down, so well, material up. Yes, white has very strong attack and very strong compensation, and white is probably winning in this position here, but black could afford giving up some material. So good defensive strategy, when you material up and the opponent has a strong attack, give up some material. Okay, rook to e5, looking to hassle the queen there. Queen b1 gives a check, and king moves up to h2. And now black played pawn takes h5. Now obviously this opens up the possibility of a discovered check, attacking the king and the rook at the same time. So, and against this plan, black obviously wanted to play bishop to g6, activating the bishop further, connecting the rook, not caring much about giving up the exchange. So black is happy to give up more material to activate his pieces, but training question number 8, why is this losing for black? A little bit of a difficult question, but try to find out, after black goes for this operation of taking this pawn, why is it losing? What is the winning plan for white? Okay, let's have a look what Topalov played here. Indeed, bishop h6 check, and the defensive resource bishop to g6. And now very interesting psychological situation as well. It was never good for white to take this rook, and it was always good for black to give up this exchange. But actually in this position here, white is giving up the exchange, and the motive is that by giving up this bishop, white is vacating the g5 square and the h6 square for the queen to come in for a deadly attack. Have a look at this. If the rook takes here, and this is also what was played in the game, the queen is threatening to come in here. And so it's very instructive to see this. Queen to g5, and now black played queen takes a2 with the plan of answering queen to h6 with queen to f7 protecting the square. But at the same time, white also posed a second threat, and as we know, in an attack it's always good to do moves that have two threats, because sometimes, most of the times, the opponent can only counter one of the threats. So pause your video for the last training question in this video, number 9. Okay, the second threat was rook to e7. The rook is invading on the 7th rank, stopping queen to f7. Fabiano Caruana played queen to f2, and in fact now if the queen moves in here, the idea was queen takes f6. So actually this move defends against the plan of a mate here on the g7 square, but white has yet another threat. What check can white give to finish it up? Rook to g7 check, king to h8 only move, and rook takes g6. And here Caruana resigned in view of pawn takes and queen h6 mate. And let's have a look at the critical positions here. Knight to e5, creating the situation of boxed in pieces, and then the topical but crazy move giving up the bishop, trading in for a strong attack, and then using all resources to attack, and black is not in time to defend against this strong local superiority. Thanks a lot for watching.